Get her up. Load up. Sit. Sit. Ah, you're what? Okay. Sit. Come here. Load up. Oh, good boy. All right, so I guess this thing's getting started. How's it going, guys? This is Andrew and Kicker, and we are going to do a little Instagram live about sort of our story and the progression to sort of where we're at now, and sort of the progression of following my dreams and the highs and the devastating lows, and just sort of our whole story. Kicker's obviously pretty lovey, so I'm going to give it like 2 or 3 minutes for everybody to join, and then we'll get started. Hope everyone's enjoying their Sunday. I know Kicker is. We went for a nice walk this morning, and it's starting to snow, so that's kind of cool. I'll also be answering any questions people may have, so we'll just kind of go through the story and go from there. Kicker, you're such a cow. You're such a leaner. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I know some people probably know a lot of our story, and then some people just joining in. So I want to sort of go through the whole thing, so you have sort of an idea of how this all started, which is, not a fairy tale story, to be honest. So seems like basically everybody's here, so I'm just going to get started. So my name's Andrew Muse. This is my pup, Kicker dog. Kicker is just over 2 years old. He's a golden retriever. He was given to me by Red Canyon Retrievers and Copper Canyon Doodles. And so basically my story is I was born and raised in Massachusetts. My dad bailed when I was 8, so I was raised by a single mother. I have a younger sister. She did her best for my sister and I, but had her own issues, and we grew up pretty poor for some of the time, and that was just sort of, it was a tough environment growing up as a kid, and I didn't really know any happy adult. So instead of going to college right after high school, I decided I would pursue the things that I loved, and snowboarding was definitely my biggest passion. So I applied everywhere I could out west, and got a job ski patrolling at the canyons in Utah. And ended up, I just kind of moved here, didn't know anybody. I was like 17 years old, signed a lease, mailed my deposit, and I arrive at baggage claim in Salt Lake City. And I get a phone call saying, "Hey, man, the place fell through. You don't have a place to live." Like, are you kidding? So however many 1,000 miles from home and 17 years old, and I just found out I don't have a place to live as I'm pursuing this sort of lifestyle. So that's how it all started. Things got off to a rough start, but through couchsurfing.com, I met somebody, and they were able to like really help me out. And finally I found a place to live, and ski patrolled for that winter. And that summer, I went back east, lifeguarded for the summer at Salisbury Beach. So I was an ocean lifeguard, which was a really fun job. And then I came back to Utah and was moving here full time, fully committing. And I was super excited to start my second season when I ducked a rope line onto like a closed groomer, a closed trail, and I got fired 3 days before I was supposed to start my second season. Like, okay, there goes my dream of being a professional heli ski guide. That was sort of my dream, heli ski guide or professional snowboarder. And I was devastated, and I thought sort of everything had crumbled, and there was going to be no future doing these things that I love. But I pushed through it. I got a job waiting tables, and quickly realized I could make a lot more money waiting tables, and I got to ski a lot more, which was great. And over the course of a few years, I started filming stuff on GoPros, and some of that content started to do well, and I realized that there was like a niche there for me. So I started producing content and working with brands on like a very, very sort of entry level basis. And you know, as far as that progression goes, I'm going to take a step back. I always wanted a dog. I grew up as a kid. We always had like small dogs, and my living situation was pretty volatile. So we'd have these dogs for like 2 years, and then they'd end up going to the shelter or something. It was horrible. And so right when I got out of my living situation, moved out west, I wanted to get a dog, but I also didn't want to get a dog before I was ready to give it the best life possible. And that's huge. Like, I have a lot of people that reach out to me and ask like, hey, like, I'm going to get this dog. I'm a freshman in college and I work full time. I'm getting a golden retriever. I'm like, don't. If you don't have the time to give a dog an amazing life, you probably shouldn't get a dog. So anyways, I wait till I was 22. I didn't go to college, and I had a job where I could take Booter to work with me. And so got Booter. He was amazing, and sort of started off with the adventurous lifestyle that I lead, snowboarding and climbing and taking him everywhere possible. I took him to work with me, all that stuff. And I think that's also a huge part of dog training. Like, people ask how I train Booter and Kicker, and it's just bringing them everywhere, spending time, putting the time in. They get to know what you want from them, and you get to know what they need from you, and it's just that sort of progression. So to jump back sort of to where my career started to unfold, I started filming and had a GoPro and started producing content, had a few entry-level sponsorships like sunglasses or snowboard. Like, Roswell was my first big sponsor. And I'd take the mud season off because you can make a lot of money in the winters here in Park City and in the summers, but the spring and fall, there's just muddy and gross, and the tourism goes way down. So, it started off living out of a Volkswagen Golf. I'd take 2 months and go climbing, and then before I had Kicker, I spent 2 months living out of a backpack on Kauai by myself when I was 19. And I realized that those situations, those experiences where I would step out of my comfort zone, go somewhere where I didn't know anybody, would be the most like fulfilling and life-changing moments of my life. So moving to Park City, going to Kauai, living out of my vehicles. And so at this point I had an Astro van, and I had been traveling and filming, but not full time. I was waiting tables at a fine dining restaurant. I'd lived in people's garages. I've lived in like under stairwells, so I was paying as little rent as possible, living as minimalistically as possible, so I could travel and do the things that I love as much as possible. So anyways, I ended up kind of having this quarter life crisis. I was 25. I was waiting tables. I had an Astro van. I was like living in a garage, essentially. And so I bought a truck, making payments on a Nissan Titan, and was living in this master bedroom. I was living with my girlfriend at the time. And, I realized that I wanted to get back to sort of the life on the road, adventure lifestyle I was living. So I found a 1976 Dyna-Cruiser truck camper for $500, and thought it would be this fun 2-week project to remodel, and ended up being a lot more work and a lot more expensive than I thought. So I worked my butt off. I was waiting tables and I was remodeling this truck camper. It's funny. It's like it awakened this work ethic and this passion that I didn't know existed. Like, I'm a hard worker, I'm pretty competent, but we ended up, I would just like wake up at 6 a.m, like wake up, eat a quick breakfast, and then work from 6 a.m. to 12 at night for 2 months straight. Whether I had to like leave my, for my real job, which I would, take a 5-minute shower, go work till 12 at night, go to bed, wake up at 6. I was just super excited about this tiny home adventure concept. Lay down. he's a leaner. So anyways, I commit to this lifestyle. I reached out to as many. I probably sent 300 emails reaching out to brands with this concept. Hey, I've built a small following. I'm a good content creator. I'm going on this 6-month road trip where I'm going to produce 12 episodes, and I committed my heart and soul and life savings to this project. And I had Maverick, which is a gas station company, who's one of my biggest supporters. They've been incredibly supportive throughout my entire progression in my entire career. Rosignol, who I snowboard for, they've been amazing. They're incredible people. And Coast Portland, they make flashlights, headlamps, and knives. Anyways, those were my first 3 sponsors. And granted, I was probably, over the course of 6 months, I made less than $2,000 from my sponsors. So I was really just tapping into my savings. And like I said, I was living in this master bedroom, moved out and into the garage to save as much money as possible, and was working my butt off at the restaurant and remodeling the camper. So Buddha and I set off for this 6-month adventure. We did all kinds of crazy stuff. It's where I got to paragliding for my first time. We set up some insane rope swings, backcountry snowboarding, went and checked out the wave. We did it's 12 episodes of like the coolest road trip that I could ever imagined going on. And we went on it without any sort of hiccups. Like, I never got hurt. Booter never even yelped once. Like, we did all these crazy adventures that were fairly high risk, all within my skill set. But you do enough stupid stuff, things, action sports, sometimes things catch up with you. So and I had finished filming the last episode, and we had done this crazy rope swing, probably one of the craziest things in my entire life, pardon me. And my younger sister had just gotten married. She was living in Santa Barbara. She got married on a float. It's kind of a crazy story. And so I jet from Moab to Santa Barbara, hang out with my sister and her new, our new family and my family, and everyone's together. And my mom's doing really well. My sister's doing really well. I'm doing really well. Like, it was the first time in my entire life where things were perfect. Like, things were going so right. Like, I really couldn't have asked for more. And I was filming and editing every episode on a 2-week time frame. So I'd film and release, and I was hitting these deadlines, and I sort of wanted to show this proof of concept. So hopefully moving forward, I could do a second season and actually make a little bit of money, opposed to investing my life savings into this thing. And so hanging out with the family, it was great. And I wanted to get home to Park City to spend as much time as I could editing the final episode, just because it was like this grand season finale. This was going to be my step to the next level, whatever that might mean. So driving home from Santa Barbara, it's like probably a 12-hour drive. I'm in this big truck camper. I'm exhausted from socializing with the family and going out and dinners and all this stuff. And I was really tired, but I was hell bent on spending as much time as possible and paying my dues as much as I could to have as much time as possible to edit this thing and make it the most incredible season finale I could. And I got really tired, and I told myself, if I can drive 1 more hour, that'll put me within 2 hours of Park City. And that was hands down the biggest mistake I've made in my entire life. I was driving, it was flat stretch of road, it was dark, and I don't really know exactly what happened, but next thing I know, there was an 18-wheeler in the cab with me, and I just screamed no. I knew Buddha was next to me, and I just was in total disbelief. He was my best friend and my fucking soulmate, pardon the language, and I made a mistake that cost him his life, and it's something I'll never ever forgive myself for, and nor do I want to. I want to learn from it, and people are like, oh, it's not your fault, but I fucked up. And anyways, the cab or the 18-wheeler is in the truck with me. It's still moving. I kind of wake up and scream no because of the situation, and the truck stops and my legs are pinned and the truck's on fire, and eventually some other people pull over and I start for help, and I think people were like pretty shocked to find out that there was somebody alive, and they kind of eventually came over and opened up the door, which was like totally stuck, and my legs were pinned, and I freed myself, and then I ripped apart the center console and I got Booter out, and he was unconscious but breathing, and I did everything I could to try and save him. When people showed up, I demanded that someone try and call an emergency vet, and then the paramedics showed up, and I refused care and asked that they try and help Booter, but there was really nothing anybody could do, and he passed away in my lap on the side of the road. And like the whole Dota thing, this is kind of that story. It was a mistake, and I should have pulled over. And I hope this is a lesson to everybody that's following along. Like, there's no need to be in a rush, and if you're tired, pull over. If you're drunk, don't drive, or whatever. Like, you could ruin your life. And at that moment in time, I thought I did. That was everything I had. Every dollar I had was invested into this truck camper and this project. That was all of my belongings. Everything I owned was in the truck camper, and I could have let all that stuff burn. I would have been, if I could have kept Booter, like, I would have lit that stuff on fire with a smile and walked away and started new. And I would have done anything to have saved him, and I did everything I could. So sorry for crying. And I'm at the scene of the accident, and my life's over as far as I know it. Like, everything I own's gone. The love of my life, my money, my home, my truck. And some of the paramedics are trying to make small talk about climbing. They're like, "Oh, I see you're a climber," because my climbing gear was like splayed out on the side of the road over the 200 yards. Like, yeah, leave me alone. I want to fucking die. And anyway, so I'm just like sitting on the side of the road, like sobbing my guts out, thinking about how grateful I would be if a car came and ran me over. And one of these firefighters showed up and kind of quietly came over and threw like a blanket over my shoulders and was like, "Hey man, like, I am so sorry." He's like, "I get it. Like, I have dogs at home and I've lost dogs, and like, I get it." And he was totally there for me. Like, nobody else at the scene of the accident really understood where I was at, and I could tell Paul really was, and he was just kind of there by my side and helped me deal with the bullshit paperwork and this really rude cop. Like, I wanted to bring Kicker home to bury him, and he's like, "We can just dig a hole in the side of the road. Like, carrying him around isn't gonna bring him back." Like, just fucking asshole. And but Paul was there, and he helped me, and they had to leave, and I was stuck on the side of the road for over 6 hours because I had refused medical care, and no one could bring me to the nearest town. So I really wanted to show Paul the connection that Booter and I had. Like, it was really something special. Like, I could communicate to him without words, and vice versa. And we went on all these crazy, wild adventures, and it was really like a powerful connection that we had. So, pardon me. So, and that being said, the shot of me on the side of the road filming "I Just Ruined My Fucking Life" was one of the hardest things I've ever had to film. And this tiny home adventure thing, people were invested in, and I don't know, I just didn't know what else to do. It was a part of this horrible, epic tragedy in my life, and I wouldn't know how to tell people about it, so I filmed it, and it's a weird shot, and I totally get it being creepy and weird. Anyways, so my friend Nate Dolan I call him, I tell him, hey, I was in a car accident and I lost Booter. And he like leaves work and comes and picks me up, and which was like 4 hours away. Apparently, he like got my phone call, dropped all of his stuff, and just left to come pick me up. So I'm super grateful for that. Um, so, anyways, I get home, and or home being sleeping on Nate's couch, and I'm just devastated. I didn't really know what else I could do in my life. I was, I lost everything. I had no money. Later, it's okay. Come on. Later, come on. I had no money. I had sort of nothing going for me. I didn't have a truck. I didn't have, money. I didn't have anything. So um, that's when like the community of people that had been following the tiny home adventure um, sort of started to reach out, because I didn't really know that this was affecting people like on an emotional level and inspiring people to live, a more passionate life. But apparently, I had hundreds of people from around the world say, "Hey, like your and Booter's relationship inspired me to live, a more passionate and fulfilling life." And that was one of the most powerful things that I think happened throughout that process of this guilt and this poor me attitude that I had, and this lost feeling. I like It was just crazy to hear that what we were doing was touching people on a more personal level. Anyways, we I didn't really know what to do financially, and I was living on my friend's couch, and I just didn't really know what the next steps were, and how much debt I was going to be in, and if this was going to be an unsurmountable um, challenge in my life. I didn't know about how much all these things, so many things. And so I put together a You Caring account, because I had donated to several other people that I sort of related to, other athletes and people sort of pursuing this life of passion, which looks great on the highlight reel, on social media, but it is so much work and so much dedication, and your hourly wage is probably $2 an hour. So, anyways, and sort of as I donated these people, I'd ask myself, like, I wonder, like, I'm trying to do something similar. These are my idols. I wonder if I was in a situation like this, if anyone would really care. I'm like not a big name. I'm just sort of living this life, trying to pursue my passions. And in less than 24 hours, people donated, or 48 hours, people donated $25,000. And like I said, I got messages from all over the world saying, like, you inspired my family, or I show your footage to my high school or middle school or, elementary school classrooms, like all these crazy, crazy things. So that's sort of when I was inspired to try to rebuild. And I didn't know what else to do. That was my plan coming back. Obviously, having my life shattered, I didn't think that was possible. But, after having, just such an outpour of support from the community worldwide, and people that were like, keep going, and that had like donated, and they're like, rebuild and all, So I tried to like shift my focus, as much of like a sad, blubbering mess that I was. I tried to go through the steps to rebuild my life, and make sure, with the insurance and everything like that, that I would just make sure that that all worked. And somehow it did. And reached back out to my sponsors, and Maverick was willing to really help me back onto my feet. Um, and Rosignol and Paul and I kept in contact back and forth for a while. And then one day, one day Paul reached out and said, "Hey man, just out of the blue, hey man, I have a really cool opportunity for you, but I want to tell you a story first." And he proceeded to tell me the story about how he tragically lost his first dog, and how it was the best dog he could have ever imagined, and how he was devastated and lost. And that his parents got him another dog sooner than he was ready, and how much that helped him with his healing and just sort of that whole progression. And that now him and his family breed Goldens and Golden Doodles, and that when I was ready, that they had a puppy for me. So the first litter that was ready over here. Come on, he's just getting antsy. Come here, lay down, lay down. So, anyways, he offers a batch of puppies, and just my life wasn't ready, and so I turned it down just because I didn't know if I was going to be flipping burgers or whatever, or working a job that didn't allow me to give a dog the best life possible. And that's like been my goal, is like give these dogs just the most incredible, dream of a lifestyle that you could give a dog. Um, and things progressed, and a few weeks later, GoPro reached out and they said, "Hey, they were like, yeah, we incredibly nice and inspiring and thoughtful." They were like, "Yeah, we," and like wise people I've ever met. They're all time. So I love those guys, and and they're like just grateful. I'll be grateful for the rest of my life for their kindness. And um, so, anyways, I go down to pick up Kicker, who's tired of sitting next to me, and I had such a hard time, honestly. Like, Booter was the best dog I could have ever dreamed of. Like, that's not me just saying that. Like, people with really great dogs thought Booter was like the best dog ever, and he really was. He was just perfect. He was gentle and kind and intelligent, and sort of like on a whole nother level. Um, so I I went down to their house to check out the litter, and I was super worried that he wasn't going to be adventurous and sort of willing to do these things. Dogs are different. Some dogs are really neurotic. Some dogs are high strung, and all this stuff. So I spent probably 6 hours at their house sitting with these puppies. They're peeing on the floor. It was, I don't know. I felt really bad, but I had such a hard time hanging out and trying to figure out like who could fill this giant void in my life. And like there's no way I could ever hold a dog to those same standards. Like that would be just unrealistic, really. And I didn't want to do that, but it was hard not to. So anyways, I pick Kicker. You guys have seen the photo of me holding him, and it was one of the hardest decisions I've kind of had to make. And go home. He comes of age, 8, 10 weeks old, somewhere in there, and drive down, pick him up. And meanwhile, they had been sending me photos of like the whole litter, and it was like all the puppies sitting, and then Kicker was like sneaking up in front, like smelling. He was just like the adventurous soul, and I was like, "Oh, that's Kicker! Like, yes, like he's hopefully this dog that I'm hoping he's gonna be." And anyways, we bring him home, and I'm still like super nervous and like not really sure, like, but I was still so hurt and unsure of who he was. And I bring him home and I plop him down in the snow, and I'm like, sort of, this is the test. Like we got home, and there was like 6 inches of fresh snow, and he sort of like lands, shakes off, and goes nuts, like running around, slipping, sliding, chasing his tail, chasing us, just having a blast. And that's like the moment, that big sigh where I was like, oh my God, like this dog could be, you know, the dog that I'm hoping he is, or help fill that void in my heart, and having a new companion to travel with. And I mean, I love dogs. I love dogs way more than people. Like this thing right here is super awkward for me. Like doing Instagram stories, I have a hard time with, and but I get along with dogs so well. Anyways, um, so he's this little golden nugget. He's awesome. He's got a great personality. He just took everything in stride, from snowboarding to snowmobiling to kiteboarding to ice climbing, like all these things. He just sort of was like, oh, cool. Like we're doing something new and exciting. And like never was like shaking or scared. I mean, there were times where he'd kind of look at me and be like, I don't know if this is a good idea. But then getting him through that whole, every situation we went through, keeping him happy, warm, and safe, and staying within my skill set, like he had just this epic sort of leads into season 2 of the tiny home adventure. So Kicker came into my life. GoPro picked up season 2. My sponsors agreed to be a little bit more heavily involved, so it wasn't such an investment on my part. And I found this van for $25,000, which was like $75,000 cheaper than any other expedition vehicle I could find. So it was a Ford E350 four-wheel drive with 320,000 miles on it, and we spent just over a week remodeling it. And I'm actually going to release the remodel edit here in the next like week or two, and built out this new adventure home and headed towards Alaska, which I'd never been to. Alaska was something I dreamt about since I was like 11 years old, and so we packed up and picked up my friend Anton, who's a Swedish friend of mine, and he was going to help film this epic adventure. And yeah, we sort of like right out of the gate, Kicker came into my life. I was already living in the van, and he was just introduced to this adventure lifestyle from 8 weeks old to 2 years old now. And we set off and did all kinds of crazy adventures: backcountry snowboarding, paragliding, speed flying. Met some incredible people along the way, had some wild stories. We had the sled trailer break down like 5 or 6 times, and it was really just this awesome adventure. And that's sort of season 2, the tiny home adventure, which tells the story from the car accident to Kicker as this little puppy coming into my life, all the way up through him being this badass Alaskan mountain dog. And yeah, it was just a really incredible adventure. And if you're just tuning in, I recommend checking out season 1 and 2 of the tiny home adventure and sort of getting to know our lifestyle a little bit more. It's a pretty fun little series if you like dogs and action sports and adventures and lifestyle and van life stuff. Like, you'd probably dig it. So and we got back from season 2 actually a little over a year ago, but it just released. Just the logistics of editing, which was so much work. I spent so many hours in front of the computer this winter editing. But anyways, so yeah, I'm gonna our future plans, I guess. Right now we're living in Park City at the moment, and I actually have a new project vehicle I'm working on, which is an F550. We're gonna try and build it out to an Earth Roamer, which is like this incredible, very capable, very livable sort of 4x4 vehicle. The van is great. It's just not being able to stand and having to like set up a camp stove to cook isn't really sustainable. And I think my girlfriend is going to come on the next one, which is a whole new element. She's from the Midwest, doesn't have a very strong adventure skill set, but we're gonna push some boundaries and progress. And we're thinking about heading to Central America this time. If we can get the right sponsors and all that stuff going, like it's a huge undertaking. So that's sort of the tentative plans. We have a bunch of other stuff this summer that'll be really fun and adventurous, and I'll always be releasing new content and new stories and talking about sort of my philosophy and all that stuff. But I get all of these questions about dog training, so I'm going to go through just a super brief my philosophy on dog training. If you guys are interested, and then I'll answer any questions that you might have. So if you have questions, hang on, give me 5 minutes and we'll be there and I'll answer whatever you have. So as far as dog training goes, you just like consistency is key. You want to have consistent commands. You want to have hand signals associated with those commands. And you also, a tired dog is a happy, well-behaved dog. So make sure you're getting your dog consistent exercise every day. Let them be a dog. Let them run around and smell things. And, if you can, have them off leash and let them be a dog. Let them use their instincts and their senses. And, I think that's a huge part of having a dog that's not neurotic and that's sort of happy and healthy. And also feeding them good dog food. There's a lot of really crap dog food that's mostly filler, and you end up having to deal with a lot more dog poop because your dog doesn't actually absorb any of that filler stuff. So yeah, just consistency, exercise, like spending time with your dog, just bringing your dog wherever you can, keeping them safe and happy and warm and comfortable. And if you're going to take your dog skiing, if you hit your dog with the edge of your skis, which is very, very possible because they want to run into you, you can permanently damage or injure your dog. And I don't recommend doing that unless you're one, a very strong snowboarder or skier, or two, a good dog trainer. Like you need to be aware that if you hit your dog, it's going to be very, very, very bad. So be careful. Moving on, I will start answering questions. And the first one, the surfboard. So as far as the surfboard goes, I've had probably 150 messages in regards to the surfboard, which I have no idea how that thing is even in one piece. I have connected with Jeremy, and I will pick up the snowboard here, which could be in the next 2 weeks. But I do have the surfboard in my hands at some point. But thank you all so much for taking the time and to reach out and to like care enough to, bring that up. That's awesome. Why did I choose the name Kicker? So the name Kicker sort of stems from booter. A booter is sorry, I have to sneeze. Pardon me. A booter is a jump. It's, or a snowboarding jump or a wakeboarding jump or a kiteboarding jump. Usually a snowboarding jump, like a really big jump. And a kicker is usually like a smaller jump. And I had planned on someday maybe breeding booter and naming the puppy that I keep Kicker. And I wasn't going to name Kicker because I didn't want to hold him to that same standard. And once Kicker came into my life and sort of realized who he was and got to know him a little better, I was like, okay, like you are Kicker. I sort of had my dogs for a while before I name them, just because I want them to choose their name. And Booter would also get on your foot a lot as a puppy. I'd be like running around with him, and I'd look back to see where he was at, and I couldn't see him, and he'd be right under my feet. So I'd like have to dive over him so I didn't boot him. And Kicker's sort of the same way. How do I manage my business taxes incorporating accept? So I got an accountant this year just because I committed to this lifestyle 3 years ago. Quit my job April 1st, 3 years ago. The first year I didn't make any money. The second year I sort of broke even-ish, and last year I was able to turn a little profit, which is awesome. But I'm doing videos and sponsored content and photos for a lot of different brands. A lot of stuff that I don't post about. It's just like corporate sort of content that I do. And my business is an LLC filed as an S corp. That way I don't have to pay the self-employment tax, which is crazy, crazy high. I have been to Tahoe. One of my good buddies, Matt Terry, or Tahoe Terry on Instagram, lives in Tahoe. And actually, one of the first episodes of season 2, Kicker and I go to Tahoe and ride up by Kirkwood, some pass, which is really great. I was 22 when I got Booter, who was my first dog. I was working at a park where I could bring him. So I sort of always wanted a dog, but I waited until I was like financially stable enough and had a lifestyle that I could give a dog the best life possible. Sorry. Crying snots. Best dog food. I've done a ton of research. There are a few good ones out there. There are a few that I thought were good and then got caught for having a bunch of lead content, like Blue Buffalo. But right now we're using Nulo. Kicker seems to really like it, and I've read some great reviews on it. So we use Nulo Freestyle Salmon. It's pretty good. I have taken Kicker paddleboarding. Actually, the very first time he went swimming, which I think is in episode 12 of Tiny Home Adventure Season 2. He got to go swim, and then we paddleboarded with him, and we've done a bunch of paddleboarding since. Name of places you have visited. That's a lot. We've gone to a lot of really cool places. Some of my favorites have been Havasupai Falls, which if you ever go there, bring an extra trash bag, pick up some trash. and Alaska, the Wave, all kinds of places. Um, what are your money incomes? Just sponsorships. So most of my income is through creating content for brands, like whether it's a water bottle company, Maverick, the gas station. We do 2 pieces of content for them a month, which is like a monthly thing, and then I do one-off projects that I'm sort of the filmer, director, editor, or whatever the role is. That's a big way of how I make money. The sponsorship stuff helps, but it's not like a huge amount of income, honestly. More like the one-off projects seem to be more financially beneficial. I do like to work with brands long term, um, but it just sort of depends on the brand. Every agreement I have is different. Um, but yeah, we do sponsored posts, we do content, video, photo for brands, and we just are ambassadors for a few others. You can watch all of the episodes on my YouTube. It's just, I think, Andrew Muse. You can watch episode. I would start. I mean, you can go way back, but start at season 1, episode 1, and you can see the whole progression and learn more of the story and the connection that I had with Booter and that I have with Kicker and sort of how that worked. Um, so as far as dog year goes, um, sorry, I'm just kind of looking at these questions. Michael, so this is crazy. This is a whole nother kind of side story that I'm going to touch on. Hopefully, Michael, you don't mind here. Um, my dad bailed when I was 8. I didn't hear a word from him for 20 years. And he came back into my life a little over a year ago. And we had this meeting, and it was not great. And that's on a whole nother story in itself. And since then, he's been like actively trying to get his life back together and has been making a real effort. And it's actually been pretty mind blowing as to like how far he's come. The relationship is still very much in its infancy and still pretty guarded. I'm sure Gary's maybe watching. But a really cool thing happened through social media is I found out that I have a first cousin that I never knew about. My family's like really small, really dysfunctional, really crazy. And it turns out, yeah, my dad had a brother who passed away who had a kid. And I have a first cousin that I never knew about. And that's maybe one of the craziest social media messages I've gotten, to answer your question, is that I have a first cousin that I never knew about. I'm just going through these questions here, scrolling back up. I have not been to the eastern end of Long Island, but I will be back in Massachusetts, where I'm from, in July, cruising around. So maybe we can meet up. Rough Dogwear. Roughwear does make some awesome stuff. We used to work with them, but they're not super supportive. And I don't know. I'm trying not to promote Roughwear, but right now we use Atlas Pet Company. They make lifetime guarantee leashes and collars, and they're just awesome to work with. The guy Sam is super cool, and so that's the gear that I really like. Tell us about my girlfriend. So her name's Ashley. She's from Michigan, and oddly enough, we met on Tinder. Yep. So you can tear that one up. But in all honesty, like I have never met somebody that I've connected with on that level before. Like we just have a blast together. She's super, super funny and a total ham. She's not terribly adventure savvy, so that will be a progression where we're trying to like teach her to climb and ski big mountain lines and do all these things. So that'll be maybe sort of the part of the next season, is sort of Ashley's progression and that new dynamic of having like my girlfriend on board. Where am I able to let Kicker off leash? Everywhere I possibly can. He's really well behaved and he's great with kids. He's great with dogs. He listens. He has a great recall. So I rarely leash him, honestly. If I'm working with him, sometimes we'll work on a leash, but initially I train him and I leash train him, and then once he's sort of has that recall and the come sit stay and will listen even when there's wildlife present, he basically gets to do his thing, which is great. What do I use to film and edit? I film on my kit right now, which I love. Like this is sort of the highest production value and the most mobile sort of setup I have is I shoot on 2 GoPro Hero 6s, a Mavic, so a DJI Mavic drone, and a GH5, which is like a Panasonic small or micro four thirds video camera. It takes photos, but the video is really great. And then I shoot my photos on a 5D Mark II, which is a Canon camera that's 10 years old, really beautiful landscape camera, and it also takes beautiful night photos. Where's the best place you have been? Alaska, probably. It's just there's so much adventure and it's so quirky and weird and people are so cool and yeah, it was really interesting. Um, TV channel needs to pick up these series. So as far as like moving forward, I actually have been pushing on those doors. I did a project, Kicker and I did a project with Travel Channel and Land Rover last summer, which was awesome. It was super lucrative and it was great. And I'm trying to see what those what that avenue looks like and reaching out to producers and agents and all that stuff. So we're working on it, trying to get like the things up for us. So if you're listening and you want to submit, tell her that we're, no worries there. Cool space. I mean, there's so many cool places. It's just honestly like going with the flow and going to having a destination in mind, but then like not being bent on, okay, we have to get here at this date and like meeting locals and sort of going on unique adventures. Like that's the best way to do it. Absolutely. I would love to do a season in Europe. I would also love to do a season on a sailboat. So that's sort of in the works. We're just kind of figuring out what's happening with, it's just a progression. So hopefully South America and then either Europe or a sailboat somewhere. I haven't really spent a ton of the Midwest, but my mom getting remarried in July, so I'll be back in Massachusetts for July, and then we will be heading to Michigan to see my girlfriend's family and meet her family, which will be crazy. Yeah, Michigan girls are the best, huh? It's the scariest situation I've encountered with Kicker. Sometimes Kicker gets out of the backyard, and that's probably the scariest thing because we live in a pretty like rural area, and there's always dogs out doing their thing, and that's fine. But just not knowing when he's gone for like a half hour or something, like worrying about what's going on. But we've been paragliding, we've been rope swinging, we've been ice climbing. That stuff doesn't scare me because I try to operate well within my comfort zone and my skill set. I'm never pushing it when I'm with Kicker. I'm always like very in control. So doing crazy activities with Kicker isn't that scary for me because I'm not putting, at least to my level of like risk to reward, I'm not really putting him at risk, or at least in a situation that I know I can't safely get him out of. What do you think about learning to climb in a climbing gym versus the outdoors? They're definitely two different things, but you can gain a huge amount of skills for your bag of tricks in the climbing gym and your hand strength and sort of knowing how to move. Obviously, when you're outside, you're doing more route finding because everything's not sort of labeled and obvious. Sorry, my allergies are killing me, and I also cried, so I'm all stuffed up. Yeah, I don't know. I love climbing outside. I like doing long, multi-pitch, like easy trad routes. I like the adventure element of that. I'm not pushing myself terribly. I'm not too scared. I'm not climbing super hard grades anymore, but it's really fun to just have this adventure and find the route and place the gear and work with the ropes and manage. There's a lot more that comes into it on an intellectual level versus just being strong. Your adventures, you should come to Ireland. I would love to go to Ireland. It looks beautiful. Just kind of waiting on a project to bring me there. Hey, let's get your show on TV. Any offers? Yeah. I actually spoke with an agent last week about getting our thing on a show and starting to pitch it. And he was like, you need to grow your you need to grow your following. Like you need followers on Instagram, you need followers on YouTube. I need to put together a sizzle reel, which I'm going to do this week. But someone just had the idea of trying to get us on Ellen, So if you wanted to submit to Ellen, that'd be cool. I know I keep pitching that, but I'm just going through these questions. Hey, kicker, kicker. He's snoozing under the table right now. Come here. Come. We were cuddling earlier at the beginning of this, and he got kind of too warm. Load up. Load up. Up, up. Up, up. Okay. Here, sleepy dog. Okay. Say hi. Say hi. So kicker's tired. You can't tell. We went for a nice long walk this morning. Um, Dangerous animals. Thankfully, no. Actually, this morning we saw a really large coyote. I saw him last night up on this hill, and we were walking back there this morning, and I saw him quickly. And I was up with my neighbor's dogs, and they have a puppy, so I kind of like tried to stay in the middle of everything. But I don't think we've experienced anything. We've maybe seen a moose, and then when we hiked Crow Pass, which is this badass 20-something mile hike in Alaska. I read the trail report, and the last guy that hiked it saw 11 brown bears, something crazy like that. So, brown bear being grizzlies, and we didn't see any. So that was really good because he was a puppy, but I had bear mace and actually a firearm with me. So just in case, I would have battled the bear and saved kicker. Yeah, we actually spend quite a bit of time in the Pacific Northwest, so maybe we'll come crash on your couch. Kicker's weirdest quality. He's smelly. He's a really stinky pup. Booter was like auto cleaning. He'd be gross, dirty, like rolling mud and just be covered, dry off, shake off. 2 hours later, people would be like, "Who just got done at the groomer?" And Kicker, this little guy, he smells. We have to manage like sort of bathing him a little bit more and making sure he stays clean so he doesn't stink too much. But he's cute. Other than that, his quirks, he's just a funny dog. He's just a happy-go-lucky, fun dog. So before I got Booter, this is the question: how did I decide on getting a golden retriever and not another dog? I thought about getting like a pit lab mix initially. I went to a bunch of actually animal shelters to try and rescue, which I highly encourage people to do. But they didn't really know very much about the dogs and their history or anything. And for me, I was 22. Like I said, I've been really wanting to give a dog the best possible life. So I didn't get a dog from a shelter just because I was young. I didn't know. I didn't want to get into like a box of worms that I didn't know about. But I have so many friends that have adopted dogs and have incredible puppies. And so after that, I just was sort of like researching breeds. I spent, weeks researching different dogs and breeders and kennels and shelters. And I was just like, wait a minute, like a golden is like the perfect dog. They're very well tempered. They're athletic. They're snow savvy. They're not built like a husky. I think is such a cool dog, but you can't really bring them to the desert. It's just not good for them. They're designed for like tundra. They seemed like the perfect dog for me, and they totally have been, and I'm sold, and will have golden retrievers for probably the rest of my life. If you could only do one sport or activity for the rest of your life, what would it be? Probably snowboard. That's been like my number one passion since a kid. I've pursued that dream, and Kicker loves it. Like if you just saw the most recent video I posted on Instagram, it's sour. It really shows like how much he loves it. Like when I get my skis together and he knows he's coming, like it's the most happy he is, and I think it's the most happy I am. So backcountry snowboarding would be that, like being able to tour and be in the woods and be alone. Like that's really critical to my happiness, is to have those moments where I'm just like connected with nature and my dog alone. Like it's what I need. It's one of the things that really fuels my soul. I started snowboarding when I was 12. We had an after-school program that offered discounted skiing and snowboarding for like less fortunate families, I guess. So I was able to get into like a discounted after-school ski and snowboard program, and I skied for a little bit. My mom and father were really good skiers. Apparently, I didn't really know. Never skied with my dad before. Yeah, it was just I broke my collarbone when I was 12, and then I swapped over to snowboarding, and I hated it the first 2 days, and then right after that became, like, one of my biggest passions and still is to this day. Um, so kinda side note, we're not doing it anymore. I was the regional director for a nonprofit that gets kids from low-income homes into ski and snowboard programs, and, part of that was because of my child. Like, I would have never had this thing that's really influenced the course of my life more than anything else is snowboarding, and I wouldn't have had that ability if there wasn't a discounted after-school program for myself in Massachusetts. We rode Bradford Ski Area, which is like maybe 500 vertical feet. Hey, stay. You want to stay? People want to say hello. Um, yeah, I've never been to Teen, but I've heard it's awesome. I have a few friends that are out there. Look up the Apostle Islands. That sounds awesome. Something Kicker does that's hilarious. Um, there's a few things, but I don't know if they're. Uh, he's just a goon. Uh, I don't know if you can see him. He's just funny. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of funny. Hey, mom. My mom's watching. Kicker just. He's probably like 2 and 3 months. That's my guess. Who's the black dog in my videos? Yeah, so if you've seen the Companions film, which is like this really awesome film about backcountry skiing with your dog that my friend and I produced, I edited and helped film. Um, his name's Gru, Black Dog. He's Rob Asseltine's dog. Rob's a professional skier who owns this black lab who's amazing. And the dog I was talking about that he really likes, Kicker really likes Gru and just humps the crap out of him. So at least when they first hang out, like the first day they hump a bunch, and then the next day they're like cool and buddies. But that's like one of the weird things that he does. Anyways, check out the Companions film. It's a really awesome backcountry skiing film with my buddy Rob Alstine and his dog Gru, the black dog on Instagram, and Kicker and I, and we had a blast. I have not got the surfboard yet. It's about 3 hours away from where I live. But the next time I'm rolling through town, I'll be sure to grab the surfboard and post about it and share with everybody. Thank you so much for reaching out. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just catching up on these. Anchorage. I feed Kicker Nulo. What is my vocation? You live a beautiful life. Well, I would say my vocation is being a content creator. So video, photo, sort of director, all that stuff. And oh wow, I only have 2 minutes remaining before this thing shuts me off. Um, I am not a huge cat person. My girlfriend loves cats, but I'm super allergic to them, and I just haven't ever really loved cats. I'm also terrified of them. If I were a superhero, my arch enemy would throw cats because if someone threw a cat at me, I'd probably pee myself. I'm gonna kind of scroll through here. What's up, everybody? Um, able to bury. So I did bury Booter at one of our favorite places up in the Uintas. It was one of the hardest things that I've done. I was, just so crushed, and but I'm glad I laid him to rest at a place that I'm able to visit, and that is in a beautiful mountain setting and a place that we have a lot of like really great memories. Um, so this thing is definitely about to kick me off here. And yes, I am the Maverick guy, and Kicker's the Maverick dog. And I just want to say thank you all so much for following along. Kicker and I love you guys. If it wasn't for you, none of this would be possible. And your support has inspired so much of what we do and made it all possible. So I'm going to sign off, but thank you. We love you. And I hope that everybody has an amazing day. And continue to follow on, send me messages. I'll respond. I do my best to be quick about that. And we love you. And stay tuned. Catch up on YouTube if you'd like. And thank you so much. Bye, guys. Hi, hi. Hi, hi. Oh, hey, I was mainly doing like an Instagram thing, so people that are still signed on, let me go through here. I'm sorry. I was focusing on that. I'm gonna go through and answer any questions that you have. Hey, Kicker, come say hi. Come say hi. How old were you when you got your first dog? Actual first dog, not family dog. Sweet. Thank you all so much for asking questions and following along. And if there's anything I can do to enhance my YouTube, just leave me a message. I would love to hear about like what you think we should be working on and um, what content you really like and what you could do without. Because I'm trying to grow this channel. If you like it, share it with people. But I hope everybody has an amazing day. Thanks for the love.